Hey everyone, Eason here, DevRel at SpaceComputer, and today we will be talking about how you can use and integrate cTRNG in your applications. But first, what is cTRNG and what is SpaceComputer? SpaceComputer is a project that uses satellites in space to make blockchain technology and cryptocurrency systems more secure and trustworthy. In simple terms, it's like putting part of the internet in space. Now, along with this video, you will also have a blog that you can go through, and I do suggest that you do so after the video as it provides more in-depth information about what we're doing, what's SpaceComputer, and also what's cTRNG. So next, we'll talk about cTRNG and something called Orbit Port. So Orbit Port is the gateway to all of the services built on SpaceComputer's infrastructure, and that includes cTRNG. cTRNG is basically a cosmic true random number generator. It's basically just a random number generator, or if you're in Web3, you'd probably hear of VRF. But basically how it derives its randomness is from satellite instrumentation. One of it is cosmic radiation. And everything is running within a space TEE. And TEE is basically a trusted execution environment. So think of it as a secure and isolated environment where nobody can know what's actually what's the process and the values throughout the execution within the TEE itself. So before we dive into everything, let's take a look at the sample demo app that we will be building today. So this is called Cosmic Wayfinder, and think of it as a cosmic lottery kind of game. Of course, there's no rewards within this, but the mechanics are basically pretty similar. So imagine that right now you're basically going to press launch, and when you hit launch, it's going to generate it's going to fetch a random seed, and that's basically going to determine where you land on and which planet that you're going to discover. So right now you can see that we landed on a common planet called Galaxy Prime 677. You can view the random seed that's being retrieved and also like some information about the planet. And if you try pressing launch again, sometimes you may land on a rare planet, and in the very rare occasion you can actually land on a legendary planet as well. So you can see here we got a rare planet this time. So if you want to get started and code along with this video, you would need to get an API access, and all you can do is just fill in this form, and at the end of the form you should be able to get your client ID and client secret like really easily. So yeah, if you ever need it, you can go over here. The links to the blog will be in the description below as well, so you can follow along at any point of this video. Now, before we go into the technical aspects of the code, I will go over a really quick high-level overview of how everything works. So there's actually two services that you're going to need to connect to. One is Orbit Port's API, where you would actually interact and call in order to get your random seed through cTRNG. And one is the Auth0 server. So you have to call the Auth0 server first, because that's what's going to give you your bearer token, and with that bearer token you can then pass it into Orbit Port's API and fetch a random seed. Alright, so if you'd like to get more information on the Orbit Port and cTRNG as well, we have a separate documentation called docs.spacecomputer.io. Again, links will be in the description, but it will basically guide you through a more in-depth overview of what is Orbit Port, what is cTRNG, how does everything work, as well as a user guide that you can follow along with, and also see how you would use the credentials, how you get the access from Auth0, and then calling cTRNG, and also the expected response. Alright, so for the first half of this video, I'll be going through a high-level overview on how everything works. We won't be coding along yet, so if you want to jump ahead right into the coding, feel free to skip ahead. But yeah, like we'll sort of be building on the knowledge and the information that you have, and yeah, we'll just get started. So in order for you to use Orbit port, like what I mentioned, the first step is to actually authenticate with the Auth0 server. So what you receive after filling up this form is you get a client ID and client secret. That client ID and client secret is what you're going to use in order to pass into this API call over here. Basically, think of this as like an access control. So you would try to basically make a post request, and you would get an access token, a bearer access token, and also an expiry time. All right. After that, one thing that I do have to note is that we do recommend that all of this is done within a separate dedicated backend, and reason being that your client ID and client secret should be unique towards you. In this demo, it's a public client ID and public secret, but in the future you'd be using your own client ID and client secret, and you wouldn't want to expose that on the client side. So it's best to have this within your backend so you don't expose those credentials, and also you should encrypt the access token and pass it as a HTTP only cookie. But we'll go into that like in more detail later on in the video. But yeah, that's just some notes that you should take note of. Alright, next we are going to look at how we're going to generate the random seed. So it's really simple. After you have the access token, the bearer access token from this previous API call, you're basically going to pass that in. You can see over here. So you're just going to get /API/v1/random seed and pass in the bearer token. And yeah, that's it. That's how you get a random number, a random seed through cTRNG. So it's really, really simple. And then on the client side, we do advise, if let's say you're using like React or Next.js, to use something like a hook, just so that you can encapsulate all of that logic, and you can just do something like use Orbit port and get the random seed, and then it would handle all of the refetch, all of the authentication, all of that. Yeah, just done for you, right? Of course, you don't have to use React, you don't have to use Next.js, you don't have to use TypeScript or JavaScript. You can use Python, Java, basically Rust, yeah, any language that you want, because everything is just a HTTP call. Okay, so that's basically a high-level explanation of cTRNG and the project that we're going to build. And right now we're going to jump into a practical example. So like I mentioned, we'll be building a cosmic themed lottery game, and this is what I've shown you previously in the website. And to follow along, you would have to clone the repo. So you can just copy this command over here, git clone -b demo, and then the remote URL. Basically what this is doing is that you're cloning the demo branch of the repo. So if you use GitHub Desktop, or if you want to just download it as a zip, just make sure that you're on the demo branch, and then you can clone it. So now we'll go over deeper into the authentication flow, and talking about how the user and the backend flow would interact with as well. So as the user, you would basically call /API/random to your dedicated backend. Now, because we're using Next.js, and Next.js has a built-in API route handler, that's what we're going to be using. But of course, you can use Express, you can use Nest.js, you can use even Go, like anything that you want as your backend. And what's going to happen is when the moment you make that call, you'd be checking with your auth library whether you have a valid token sent as the HTTP only cookie or not. And if you don't, then it would call Auth0's OrbitPort's Auth0 server in order to get your access token, and it would return it, and you would encrypt it and return it back to the user itself. However, if you do have a valid token, you can then decrypt and parse those cookies, get the bearer token itself, and then call OrbitPort's API in order to generate a random seed and pass that back to the user. So that's basically the entire flow. It's pretty straightforward, and yeah, we can jump right into the code. So if you clone the repo itself, basically all of the front-end components have been built and handled for you already. So the only focus, the only things that we'll be focusing on would be in terms of the API implementation, authentication, hooks, and all of that. So that will be the focus for today's video. And yeah, we can start by looking at how we can implement authentication and managing token expiry. And everything would be done in the lib/auth.ts file. So if you go over to the repo, you can see that this is the file over here, and everything has been implemented. It's been documented as well. You can read through it just to understand how it works. But two functions have been intentionally left out, which I think would be more of the key focus if you're going to try to implement this yourself in your own application, which is generate access token and get valid token. So generate access token is basically how you would request a token from OrbitPort's API. And basically what you can do is just copy everything here within this repo, within this code snippet, and then paste it over here. Now this is the exact same thing as I walked you guys through earlier at the start, where we basically look at how we can call the Auth0 server, passing the client ID and the client secret, and you would get the bearer access token. And then once you have that, this is just a helper function that basically gets the encrypted token from the cookies. And if we have an encrypted token, we can decrypt it and also parse it and use that access token in order to call OrbitPort API. Alright, next we'll look at how we can piece all of that together in order to fetch the random seeds. So all of this is done within the API random file, and now this is basically Next.js own API route handler. If you're gonna do this with React, with Django, or any other framework, basically this would be within your backend itself. So we can look at the random file, and you can see that we left everything blank here. So you can just copy everything and paste it in. So remember to set your env variables. These two will be static, they will never change. And then you would fill in your own client ID and client secret based on the values that you get after you fill in the form. And to generate an auth secret, you can use the auth library within the npm package, or you can just use any 32-byte sort of like random strings in order to generate your auth secret. Alright, so let's walk through the random API. Okay, so basically for this API route handler, it's pretty straightforward. We're doing some validations here, but once the user calls this API, we would use the helper function that we created previously called getValidToken. So basically we're checking if they have a valid token. If not, then generate one, and we would return the access token. And with that access token, we can now call OrbitPort's API in order to get a random seed, passing in that bearer token. and if everything's okay, then we would just return it, and then if not, we return an error. So it's really straightforward, really easy to do. I do suggest that you guys go through this code a little bit more in depth. But once you have everything, the last step is to actually create a custom hook. And now this custom hook is going to live within your front end itself. So we're going to look at use orbit port, and same thing again. All you got to do is just copy this, very straightforward, and paste it in. Alright, so once we have all of this implemented, you can see that we are basically exposing a getRandomSeed function, and that's basically an API call to our own custom backend, which is /API/random, and basically we'll take that response and we'll return it for the client side to use. We can see where that is actually implemented. That is within the index.tsx. It's really straightforward and easy. Now that we have a hook, we can literally use it anywhere else within the app. All we got to do is just import use orbit port, and then we can use getRandomSeed. So yeah, there you go. You can see that you can retrieve the data, and then we can use that response. Now before we go ahead and run our code, you can see that there's some errors over here. So let's go ahead and fix that. The reason why these errors exist is because the response from cTRNG has changed just a little bit. So you can see here is the expected response, and this is based on the old API. So we just have to make some changes here, and we will change these into strings, and for this we'll do the same thing as well. Alright, another thing is that actually this is the new API route, so make sure to make our changes here, but don't worry, all of these updates will be done from the repo itself. It's just that as we're recording this video, there's been some changes, and we just want to make sure that you guys are aware, especially for those who have already used cTRNG. You may notice that your projects might have some errors, and this is how you can basically debug and fix it. So once all of these changes are made, then what we can do is npm install, make sure that all of the dependencies are installed, and then do an npm run dev. Alright, so now when we hit to our local host, we can see that the entire app is running, and as we hit launch, what's going to happen is that it's going to retrieve a random seed, and you can see it's actually moving right now, and there you go. We landed on this planet. It's a common type planet, and we can view the random seed that's being used. And there you go, it's that simple. Now we actually have cTRNG being used, and if you were to look at the network tab, you can actually see the API call being made, and we're only making that call to the random API route, which is from our backend. Really quickly, I do want to touch on a few other things as well. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can customize the randomness, you can actually look in generate planets. So here is where we have all of the logic for the rarity distribution. So you can see that we have ultra rare, which is a 0.01% chance, and then legendary, which is 0.05. Oops, sorry, this. So you can see we have ultra rare, which is a 1% chance, and then we have legendary, which is 5%, rare, which is 25%, common, and 69. And there you go. Like, if you want to modify anything here, feel free to play around, come up with something pretty interesting, or if you have an idea yourself that you want to build, well, you have the foundation to do so now. Again, all of the links will be in the description, and the code will be updated, so you can follow along really easily. And if you have any questions, make sure to join our SpaceComputer public Telegram group chat as well. Links will be in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.